Okay, man, I think I fucking missed my hands. Let me try that again. Okay, so chapter 12 of Project Horizons, Denial. Overall thoughts, it's aight. I didn't really get into this chapter. So I talk about this a bit more in 14, because like I said in the 13 video, which I did have before this, I've got my notes for 12, 13, and 14. There's this term that, no, never mind. We'll talk about when you get to 14, because I feel like it's a lot more apparent here. This is a chapter I think is fine. We do get a few kind of interesting delves into Blackjack. Her thinking more about 99, her thinking about her relationship with P21. I think this is when she first listens to one of those recordings, and she has a conversation with Sakashi about him that I like, and some interesting conversations with Priest. I think like those are fine. Excuse me. To me, it's just not as good as those earlier chapters, like 6 through 10. I think there was one of them, like 9, I think is an okay chapter, but it has a really cool scene in it. But most of like 6 through 10 is like really fucking good. Like I wouldn't say it's peak Horizons, but it kind of almost is. And then 11 was like, all right, this is all right. And then 12 is all right. And then 13, which talked about, was all right, but then it gets really interesting at the end. And then 14 was, I actually didn't like 14 very much. Like, shit, I thought the story was cooking, and now it's, I don't know. That's kind of all I have to say in the overall, that's all I have to say, bye! That's all I really have to say about my overall thoughts. Getting into the basic plot, Blackjack talks to Priest about the Pilgrims, how people die, and Priest's like, look, I don't like it. I genuinely don't, but I'm not going to take that choice away from them. There are so many choices we don't have in the Wasteland that we aren't able to make ourselves. The last thing I want to do is take away someone's final choice. My only stipulation is if they have children, that the children go last. So that way, the children are given the option. Because there's a lot of other children here who would love to have someone else to play with. And Blackjack is so angry and outraged. Like, she's pissed off that people would do this. She's pissed off that priests would allow this. She's like, what kind of sick, stupid, deranged fuck would want to end their own life? What the hell? Oh. I've asked P21 to kill me, like, multiple times. I've thought to myself, even this early on, I don't want to do this anymore or keep going. I can kind of understand, but I'm here because I had people around me to stop me from following through. I really wish, Priest, that you would go, like, harder into stopping people from following through. Which I think I actually have much written for Blackjack's character here. Never mind. Sorry, I was like, because there was like one chapter where I don't think I wrote much of anything. I thought it was this. I'm like, oh, never mind, there's a decent little chunk. But I'll say this. That, again, that feels like a lucidity lens thing, too. Of just her saying, I get it, but I'm so glad I have enough of a support system to keep me from doing it. Because I don't know how strong Blackjack's support system was at the time. But I think that I think I've alluded to this before. I know I talked about it in 14 with Rampage, that I think Blackjack had an older sister that she was really close to. And this was probably, like, the one person she was and again, I've talked about how, like, Priest and kind of P21-ish represent some, like, a teacher, counselor, or whatever that was helping her. This was kind of the support system she had of, please tell me not to do what I want to do, you know? Sorry, I got my nose a little fucking there. So yeah, that shit, she also goes to a funeral and, like, gets to hear funeral hymns, and it's honestly, like, a really beautiful scene. I liked it a lot. She talks to Sakashi for a bit, and she's like, alright, so this is the shit that happened. U-2-1 came with some dudes, and the Enclave came with some dudes, and then U-2-1 took your blue friend, and the Enclave took your flying friend, and so she's over there, and he's over here. By the way, before you go to your blue friends, you need to kind of do some soul search. Like, did you ever apologize to him? For what? What do you mean, for what? I mean, like, for what? He's a buck. Bucks enjoy it. That's what they're wired for. That's what they're there for. I've nothing to apologize for. And Sakashi just looks so disappointed and sad. Like, oh. You know, from all that good shit you were talking about a few chapters ago, I don't know. I thought you were a good person. I guess not. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. I was like, damn, that, like, she didn't say that, but she was thinking it. It was kind of rough. So Blackjack ends up going off by herself, and she sees a bunch of dead bodies of people that were going to ambush her, which I don't put that on her for the kill count. I kind of almost thought about it, like, no, I'm 90% sure this is Rampage, like, taking care of business. But I'm not going to count that for Blackjack at this point. Kind of doing 14. We'll talk about it when we get there. But she ends up finding this camp, and she's like, all right, do I just start sniping? No, let me go talk and figure shit out. I'm like, all right, good shit, Blackjack. You're learning. You're reverting back to who you were trying to be. And she gets ambushed by Virgo of the Zodiacs, and it's a fun scene of this incredibly haughty character. Like, I got you in my trap and in my thrall, and blah, 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 blah. And Blackjack's like, oh yeah, you're so smart. You got me. I would love to hear more about your amazing plan. And then the more Virgo talks, the more Blackjack's like, she's distracted. So let me try this. Let me try this. Oh, she told me this. Now I can do this. And I've said it before, as much as Blackjack says, I'm not a smart pony, it is easily her most used catchphrase at this point. She is a clever girl. I do really appreciate that about Blackjack. And, like, it's a fun scene, but I'm not like, man, this was awesome. It was like, it was all right. What happens after that? Oh, yeah, she ends up hearing one of her audio logs from P21, and it's the first time they had sex. I think he was P1 at the time, and he's begging her, like, please, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Don't make me do this. And she's just like, why did I get the whiny one? Oh, shut the fuck up and just fuck me. And she's listening to this and, oh, I have a lot to apologize for. And like, sister, you don't even know the half of it at this point. Fuck, when does that happen? That's got to be in chapter 15, because she hasn't gotten to that log yet as a 14. It's like at 16, that's too late, because we're dealing with the climax of the book now. So it's got to be in chapter 15. Boy, that's going to be fucking fun. And yet, the chapter ends. She comes across the Enclave. She also ends up finding the Marauders' walkers. Sees a memory orb with Jetstream, getting her memories taken by Vanity, and yeah, like, that's basically the chapter. I think it's fine. How do I want to say it? Because even talking about it, I'm like, yeah, like, the shit with Sakashi was really good, and like the P21 log was good, and like the Virgo scene was fun. Like, it's genuinely, I don't think it is a bad chapter, but it was just I didn't feel that compelled listening to it the way I did with that second third of the novel. I was saying this in chapter 13 as well. Like, 6 through 10 is really good and really interesting. This is... it's fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. I just wasn't that invested, I suppose. But... talking about Blackjack, I have to say, I mostly do really like her in this chapter. We see her... she genuinely, at this point, has a much better understanding of the sanctity and the value of life, which is why the idea of suicide is so... because originally she's like, suicide is wrong because, you know, you have your duty to the stable, and if you kill yourself, you're just making more work for other people. And now she sees it less of... what the fuck, like, your company property, and more of like, no, you're a fucking person Why would you throw yourself away? And to me, it's a very important change. I like it a lot. And like I was saying earlier, while on the one hand, I'm like, you are being really hypocritical here, Blackjack, because, you were trying to kill yourself in chapter 3 and in chapter 6. Have a little bit more compassion, but I'm also like, she is, though, because she's like, I know I could have been taking this, I could have walked on that bridge too, but there were people who stopped me, and I just wish more people would try to stop people from taking the walk, and the people that do try, I just wish, I don't want to say like you're not trying hard enough, but I really wish you'd try harder. It's definitely a sensitive and complicated issue, but I do think it's interesting, and that it does, kind of recontextualize her own suicidal thoughts and ideations, at least in her own mind, and she becomes a lot more aware of it and the impact it has. And I like that a lot, and I like I said, I really like the funeral scene. Admittedly, her talking about, like, the value of life, and like, hey, why would you just let these 3 people kill themselves, and blah, blah, blah. It probably hits a little harder if she's not thinking to herself, man, this guy doesn't try hard enough, I should fucking kill him because he's making me mad, or, yeah, I mean, I care about the value of life. Last chapter, I killed 9 people, and again, didn't give them a chance to escape at the start, wasn't I've talked about it before. If you want to say I'm not an executioner, if you want to say do better, killing has to be the last resort. You can't shoot to kill every single time. Again, we see it in Stockyard. Her actions are taken to disengage and to disarm, not to dislife, That, to me, is the fundamental problem with Blackjack. I talked about it a lot in 11. Blackjack is written as this, I am trying to be a good person and save the world one soul at a time, and is also written as the super badass action hero that can kill 9 people while getting drunk and not batting an eye. And I find them genuinely incompatible. And the fact that she'll be like, yeah, life is valuable and everyone should live. Yeah, every life is valuable and everyone should get a chance to live. Like, it doesn't work the way it's presented. And honestly, that's why this chapter bothered me so much. Like, I'm remembering it because it's been like a week or so since I've read it. Like, that's what it was. It's not that there are some interesting moments and some kind of fun moments too, like with Virgo, but I mostly like Blackjack in this chapter. And yeah, like, anytime that she actually has to confront and address her sexism, I think is really interesting. And so I really like those elements of the chapter as well. Excuse me. In terms of big picture moments, there's really not a lot. It's the first encounter with the Zodiac, so that's something. She does find the Marauder's locker, so it's a place that she goes to several times throughout the story. And like I mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of dead bodies that were going to ambush her, so it's kind of foreshadowing Rampage, who we get to meet in 14. And like, I'm so happy I have Rampage in the story now. Her introductory scene is like, you're amazing, and I love you, and I'm so glad you're here. I actually don't think anything was added to the catchphrase counter here. Red is at 6, Execution at 2, Security at 1, Smart Pony at 15, Annie Up is still at 4. I think that was maybe 2 chapters in a row with no catchphrase. It was actually kind of wild. In terms of the kill count, so with the way it was written, I only counted 1 kill initially, but after reading 13, Lighthoof specifically mentioned she killed 2 of my people, so I gave her 2. So as of chapter 12, she is at that magical number of 108. So that's all I have to say about this one. I feel like this one it felt a little more scatterbrained than some of my other chapters, and it really was just I didn't love this chapter, and it's been long enough that I don't quite remember why, because it feels like the pieces are there. It just didn't quite come together, but there we go. That's that one. I'll do 14 at some point. Probably, I would like to say tomorrow, but I'm probably not going to do it tomorrow. Soon-ish, and I've got some other videos to catch up on too, but we'll get to those when we get to those. I missed it.